Okay, this is actually a quick one. There's not that much to review. The big thing is go back to Unit 4, which ended ASL 1, and look over the cities, states, and provinces. If you didn't take ASL 1 here, I don't believe you have access to that stuff. And I think I shared all of my stuff on um, on Canvas. So you should have access to all of that stuff. Worst case scenario, go on YouTube, go online and look up cities, the predominant cities in both the US and Canada, United States, states, and Canadian provinces and territories. Um, and so the only question I really have for 1.1 when you're reviewing is they're going to sign this. It's an O. What of the states and provinces start with an O? And then go back to the states and provinces. If you look up like New York or Chicago, it will tell you what unit it's from. I believe it's 4.3. I'd have to look it up. Anyway, it's from Unit 4. If you look it up there and then search for that one, you'll see all of them. And there's a ton. Look up the ones that are most important to you or most useful. But there's a state or a province that starts with O. It's the person doing this. And remember, we use the same setup, city, state, or city, province. So this is the conversation starters. These are really actually pretty easy. We watched some of them in class. We discussed some of them. So this should be just a review for you. But if you weren't in class and missed some of that, that's what to review for 1.1. 1.2, I want you to notice the grammatical structure. They include two verbs. So we usually have OSV. This is OSV1, V2. And they just say two different verbs in sequence. So just to notice that we can do that with ASL. We don't need the conjunction and. We just say, and you can do a whole bunch of them. Like first I did this, then I did this, then I did this. Okay. 1.3, this is huge sloppy fingerspelling alert. It's, I will say this. I have been signing for 30 years, and I didn't know the words. I knew the first one, he's fingerspelling. I didn't know the second one. And there was no help. Like, it made no sense to me. It's a bad example. It's probably true, but that doesn't help. If it's not a word you recognize, especially if it's a foreign word, it's not fair to ask you to pick up the fingerspelling. It reminds me of the previous chapter when they were talking about restaurants, and they didn't name popular restaurants that we would know in Ohio. So why do it? Give us one that we have a chance of getting. Anyway, rant suspended. I'll just say that. The two that get fingerspelled are Cree and Slavey. The hard thing is if you notice that this guy doesn't bend his E, it doesn't come down. It's like fingers pointing out. It almost looks like a C. So it's really unfair. Try your best. Now that you know what it is, look for it and see the hint of the letters. 1.4, she spells Angleton. Again, a name that you wouldn't know, and you wouldn't know if you were getting it wrong. So one of the things, I believe it's this one. Yes, 1.4, also Connecticut, I believe, Connecticut. As you notice with all the ones where there's the tactile fingerspelling for the deaf-blind, we have to get used to both hands working in parallel, and that's it takes time. Watch it over and over again until you see and sign with them so that both hands are doing the same thing. It's hard. I wish they had introduced the material as a separate video and then introduced it in a deaf-blind situation so that you could see the effects of deaf-blind sign language and see the differences, because they're two different lessons. But again, you know my love for TWA. The last one in there, 1.5, talking about the difference between this and that, baby versus teenager. And the structure that they set up is this, that, which, like easy which. For teenager, he signs this, and this means like bickering, fighting, arguing all the time. So, and it's just worksheet. The first worksheet with all of these, as I said with the other worksheets in the past, go through them in the first, review all the stuff, the vocab, blah, blah, blah. Then go through the worksheet and take the first few minutes to look over what each of the multiple choices is. If you have to write it in, it's harder. But if you've got multiple choice, take a look at them, try to sign them. Then it'll be a little bit easier when you watch the video to go, oh, I didn't sign that. That's closer to what I signed, right? And most of them are pretty easy. We've already gone over these. That's where I got that other slide from, as I built upon these time frames. When I was in my 20s, that's the one I was emphasizing about, similar to driver's license at the age of 30. When your point is the time frame, you put that at the end. Okay, so you'll set up something else back in there, or you'll say the topic of got my license. I don't know. And the last one in there is, when I am in my prime, I want to do this. Do I want to keep teaching? Do I want to retire? Whatever. So think about what does in your prime mean to you? What would be the time frame? And sign that. Tomorrow. Worksheet 2, again, go through each of the examples, and then they sign this. So here's the grave, and here's the person being lowered into it. Pretty macabre, but 6 feet under. And that's in the 5th one. All the other ones are pretty easy. And then last, again, I told you it was short. The third worksheet, again, practice each of the answers in here. And it's a longer sentence. I'm just giving you the essential parts. If someone gave birth, gave some money, gave a spanking, gave presents, gave sign names, how would you sign give? Like, do you give birth? It's not something you actually give, right? Give birth. Now, you could give some money give. Do you give a spanking? Okay. You could give presents. You can give that one. Give a sign name. You could give a sign name, or you could name someone. We know name. Now you can do it as a verb, where you call someone something. So the next one, it's an animal. It died, stopped growing. Does it stop? A good way of showing that might be stop. Right. So you want to show the action first and then show it stopping. So that's getting a little complex to think about. But if you play around with how would you sign it and then watch the video, you'll know whether that's what it is or not. Smells, blah, 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 go through all those. We saw became earlier in the lecture. They are, or that person is, older, younger, retired, with you, rich, pile of money. Applying numbers in a sentence. Notice how each of these is very similar. 3, 6, 9, 8, and 7 easily confused with each other. So it's really testing you to look. It gives you one example. It's really testing you hard on one. Then tendencies, personality quirks for the next 2. Right? So just practice each of these. Get just a feel of what it should look like. The other thing to think about too is a lot of these, how would the facial expression be? If someone gave money, pretty happy face, right? Someone gave them a spanking, not so happy face, right? So think about those context clues as well. And that is it. That is it for the assignment advice for 8.1. It's a pretty short one.